Today on Gamers Couch,
Scythe.
I'm not sure. Do you have a stroke? Do you try to be a snake? Are you leaking air from somewhere? Oh, please don't leak air. Not smelly air, at least. Hi everybody, welcome to Gamers Couch. My name is Sarah, I'm the artist behind Pinselgeschichten and owner of this channel. And this sizzling man next to me is my dear husband Daniel, who's playing board games with me, talking board games with me, and
not much else. That's all we do. We have a very focused marriage. We know what to talk about and we know what not to talk about. And on that list, it's board games. Sometimes,
not to talk about or talk about.
Sometimes there's the occasional or hi, but yeah.
It's like trash. No. So we like board games, hence we own a few and we share our collection and the thoughts on our collection with you every Sunday on the game table couch thing. It's not a couch anymore. Watch back to the earlier episodes. We really sat on our couch, hence the show name. Anyway, we are talking about Scythe today and we go about it just like every week. He will tell you all about rules and gameplay and I try not to interrupt him. And then we talk about what we liked or not liked. When I tell you what I like or not like, he tries to not interrupt me. And then we finish off with funny stories and experiences and a tiny teaser for the next Draw for Initiative board game art painting that comes out Wednesday. So my dear, do the job of the explaining the world of the Scythe to the guys. And that was a mixture of 1,500 accents.
Welcome to the world of Scythe. Post kind of faux First World War area. You're playing in Europa. That's different from Europe. Whenever it's like First World War, kind of early 1920s, a little bit earlier maybe, it's always Europa. You know the difference. We still call it that way, but I mean that's us. We're
the old folks.
We're old-fashioned. We still say Europa, which is the German lesson. No, I don't count that as the German lesson of the day. Anyway, there has been a war. Technology is a bit more advanced in some areas than you might expect for that time period, because in that war, giant robots, mechs, were involved in battling out the stuff and trying to figure out what goes on. And so this now is not a country, but a cavalcade of countries. I guess
it's Europa.
That's where my style points are going, although we're not playing letterpress today. So in these lands in which we are playing, which are mostly all about resources. I mean, if you hear about a game that involves mechs and like a World War kind of scenario, and you have the Russians and the Polonians, because
Polanians, it's an A, not an O.
The Polanians.
I always think polonium when he says that, and that's not a good thing to think about.
And the Saxons, not the Germans, but just the Saxons, involved in this. You would kind of, at least I would go in and expect, well, this is a game where you have to battle with your mechs and armies, and it's not quite that. Actually, it's way more focused on how do you get resources, what can you build with them, letting your empire grow. I think Jamie Sigmeyer said that this is technically could also count as a 4X game where you have exterminate, yes, but also explore and
No, my head does funny things when you say certain words.
Exploit, and I always forget what the fourth X is, but So this is
Grow.
also a game about trying to, well, get bigger, yes, and you can find with other players, but that's not actually the focus that you want to do. So let's get started. You are essentially one of 5 factions and has a little modifier attached to that. In our little example here, I have the Republic of Polania with Anna and Wojciech in front of me. There are more different guys.
You have to
here.
ask me for them. I'm your assistant.
As I say, the Saxony Empire has Gunther von Duisburg. Then we have the Nordic kingdoms with Bjorn and Mox, and you should guess the theme by now. It's always a dude and his companion animal. We have Zara and Kara from the Crimean Khanate, and Olga and Changa from Soviet Union.
I'm impressed. You didn't suck at that accent as much as you do with others.
And then you have this secondary board. So these are not just for the looks, these are actual little game boards in front of you. And these give the little modifier like agricultural, and this one is mechanical, and here we have industrial, and here we have engineering, and I have patriotic in front of me. So each player gets a combination of any of those two, so a character board and one of those kind of modifier boards. Technically, they're doing all very much the same stuff. They tell you your starting values. I don't want to lift this up, so let's go with...
I could have given that to you. Don't reach.
So you get some starting values. Each of your character boards gives you special abilities. For example, Soviet Union has the Relentless ability. You may choose the same section on your player mat as in the previous turn, and you'll understand what that means in a second. You have 4 spaces where your faction-specific mechs are located. So in my case, it's this mech warrior, very much reminding me of mech warrior thing. Although if this would be from a movie prop, I would say this is a model kit that has I think it's a B-52 bomber, or what are they called? The flying fortress. These windows up here. Whatever. I'm getting carried away. As well as your secondary board also gives you some of your starting values, like quests you start with, your popularity, and how much money you have to begin with. So these boards pretty much govern what you will be doing through the entire game. And the game ends whenever 6 of you have these little stars here. Let's call them achievements. As soon as any player has placed the 6th star on the achievement track, which is up here, way up here on the board, you have 10 different conditions in which you can place these stars, and what you want to do kind of depends on how you want to play the game. So taking a closer look at the second board, on your turn you choose one of these 4 sections that are on these boards. They are different for each board, so that's how changes apply for different players, and you may usually only choose one section each time and then have to move on to another one. So in this case, we have this white purple which escaped from our grasp.
Yours, not ours.
I'm talking about our grasp. So we have this white purple here, and you just place them on the section that you just used. Once you have selected the section, you kind of just go from top to bottom and do what it says. You can move or gain money, then you can, down here you can pay resources to upgrade something. Here you can pay money to trade to get different goods. Here you can pay to produce goods on the board, or you can pay to bolster your army and combat strength, which probably doesn't make a lot of sense right now, but work with me here. So You also have on the board a starting area. In this case, we have my home area is this, and you can start with 2 farmers sitting right next to them. Other factions start at their respective starting bases and would also start with a little different workers. Looking at the board, you see that there's little resource icons on here that correspond with the resources available in the game. And this is how you gain resources. Resources always stay on the board, and as long as you kind of control the area, meaning you have either a mini in there or a building.
This is not correct.
Or
this is correct.
The.
Or that's Russian.
Or a building. You still own this thing, but you will never take them from the board and put them like in your personal stash, as you would do with your money, which is just here. And just to clarify it right away, this is the kind of Kickstarter collector's edition, so it has a little bit more fancy stuff in it. But it's technically, from a gameplay perspective, not different much than from the regular edition, which has just little.
Should I get the?
We're fine. We all have seen printed coins on cardboard before.
Really?
I guess so. Yeah.
Okay.
So since these actions govern what you will be doing each turn, let's say I want to move. So my move action here says I can move 2 minis or 1 space. So I can either move my guy here and then a farmer there, and can carry resources with me if I want to. I could leave them behind, but why would I do that? What I'm not allowed to do is to move 1 guy 2 times. It is, strictly speaking, just moving 2 guys once on my board. Also, and I'll move this over here, at the beginning of the game you have your board decked out with little wooden pieces. So this piece covers a 3rd movement action, and we'll get to that once we talk about the upgrade thing. Alternatively, instead of moving, I could have said I want money, and then I get a.
That's your starting money.
I get a coin to my stuff. As long as I haven't built these buildings, I don't get the special bonus that's in down on here. After that is done, the manual recommends that the next player can already start going, and we'll get to that in our, I guess, experiences, likes and dislikes, but it's a good idea to follow that advice. Down here, you're now were to pay 2 oil to upgrade, and paying 2 oil means you have to get 2 oil somehow. I'm now placing them here, so these 2 oil would be in my control, and paying 2 oil, I just return them back to the bank, and then I get to upgrade and get some money. So I get a coin for that, and more interestingly, the upgrade action. Now these little white cubes all have to do with the upgrade action, meaning I can make a thing better by removing a cube. So let's say I want 2 coins each time I use the gain action up here. So I'll remove my little cube here, which reveals an additional coin. Now, this cube isn't useless yet because I can also use it to upgrade any of the down things to reduce the cost for that action. So let's say I want to build buildings cheaper in the future. I then place this cube from up here down here, and now instead of 4 wood, I only have to pay 3 wood to build a building. The nice thing about the upgrade thing is I can move anything. So if I want to upgrade my trade popularity thing, I can take this thing and put it somewhere else. And if you manage to get rid, in quotes, of all these upgrade cubes, or a better said, to perform 6 upgrades, you achieved a little victory thing. So this is the first space here where my star would go, indicating that I successfully upgraded everything once my cubes are moved down there. going on. I could also bolster, and bolster is relating to my combat value. I have a starting combat value on my player board. This is 2, so my little marker down here on this combat board says 2. And if I say bolster, I get to move this 2 forward. Alternatively, I can take a combat card, which are these up here. I also start the game with 3 combat cards, and we'll talk about these once I get to the combat between different minis. Then again, if I would have built this monument, I would gain a free popularity thing. And I mentioned popularity. There's a specific track here. Again, something I have a starting value of 2, so my popularity is 2, and it resembles how popular I am with the farmers, the people of the land, and everybody all around. So using, if I would have built the monument, regardless if I used bolster or took the combat card, I would move my popularity once over. But I haven't built this yet, so we have to get to this to understand how to build stuff. Then, on the down action, if I own 4, I should have upgraded it. If I own 4 ore metal things here, I can spend them to deploy one of my mechs and get 3 coins for that as well. Now, the mechs are the next big thing you will be agonizing about. So I'll move this over here so you can see this a little bit better. As you can see, you have 4 mechs located here. And you can deploy any mech as you want, as long as it's in an area where there's a worker. But oh, look, I just revealed a special ability. So the mech I choose also governs which of these 4 special abilities will be granted to my mechs and to my leader mini here. So typically you're not allowed to move across water or use these sea spaces. Now, if I would build the first mech, I unlock River Walk, which allows me to move from any space towards a village space with the little duder here, or to a mountain space with the metal ore sign on here. So as soon as that mech is out, I can move this guy over here without any problems. Or I could have chosen Submerge, which allows me to move guys onto these lakes, which are usually like forbidden territories, blocking anything. But with Submerge, not only can I walk onto here, but I can use these as tunnels, so I can teleport kind of from here to there and move around the map really quickly. Or I could use Camaraderie. In combat, do not lose popularity when forcing an opponent's worker to retreat. We'll get to that once we talk about combat, but it is kind of powerful because this is a game where you probably will have a lot less combat than you thought you'd have in this, because combat is also tied to how popular you are. Because, well, Sherlock, you may have found out a war across the country doesn't necessarily make you popular, despite what the news try to tell you in certain countries. And the fourth is you just get to move an additional space whenever you move. So since I said the move action allows me to move 2 guys but only 1 space, this would allow me to move 2 spaces per move action. Also, something that mechs are really good at is carrying people around. Now, from a lore perspective, you have to understand these mechs look like, well, devastating machines of war, which they certainly were in the First Great War, but this is a land of farmers, so they got repurposed, and they're also more of a tool now than an actually. Well,
I'm just thinking they are the Uber of the early 20th century. It's like the Uber mech. Sorry, my brain is weird and goofy today.
No, give them good rating. Otherwise they blow you to smithereens. So a thing that these mechs can do is, if you move with them around using your move action, they can carry your workers around as well. And this is how actually you would be able to move workers across rivers, because as I said, even if you unlock the River Walk ability, it's only applying to your main duder and your mechs here. So you could technically spend 2 actions where one moves a guy here and then you move your mech over here with all the little guys and speed up movement a little bit. Your kind of hero guy doesn't do that, but there's a handy reference guide coming with the game reminding you what you can do with your character, your mechs, and your workers. So that's the first 2. Going on, the third action allows you to pay money to the bank.
I am the bank.
The bank of the floor, kinda. This is a really professional production. And either gain 2 wares of your choice, and you just have to place them on an area where there's a little guy on there. So even if you're lacking areas at the beginning, for example, my starting area does not cover metal, so I would have a hard time forming a hard rock band or building a mech. So in this case, I can use the trade action to get some metal and then move over there.
Calm down.
I can also instead
he's a rocksmith.
Instead just use raise my popularity and become even more famous. It's kind of like investing into the local populace by throwing coins on the floor, as I just demonstrated. If I would have built the armory, I would also get a free bolster combat bonus, but I still haven't built something. But we'll get to that now. So if I choose to execute the bottom action as well, I can pay, 4 wood to build a building wherever one of my little doodles is standing. So again, I can select either to place the mine, the monument, the armory, or the mill as I want to, as long as I pay that stuff and place a building there. You're only allowed to have 1 building per hex here, and that also counts for opponent's buildings. So you can actually try to steal the space away from them or prevent them from building something there by building your own stuff in here. As for what do the buildings do, well, I said there's this special ability that lets me teleport between lakes. The same thing is available to everyone between these mine shafts, so you can would prevent, as these are all adjacent, so with 1 move action I can move over here, for example. The mine is a building that lets me move from this area to all the others as if it would just be a regular minefield. So no, not that kind of minefield, but just a regular mine where I choose to place it.
The mine hex. Not
so right away you have an interesting choice at the start. Do you want to upgrade your mechs and gain the ability to get across rivers, or do you maybe want to try to build a mine to get into the center land? And there's a good incentive to do that once we talk about the factory in the center. Or you can build the monument, which allows you to gain free popularity whenever you kind of build your army strength. I guess that's a very patriotic thing. People will go, this is a piece of stone. I feel now way more patriotic than I did before, so raise the popularity. Or the armory, which is you're either trading or making people like you more. So I guess that thematically you could say they are more willing to die for you, or you have just the resources to convince people to die for you as a mercenaries. And the 4th building is the mill, which we'll talk about in the produce action as well. It is almost acting like an additional worker that generates resources for you. So let's go to the 4th section. And the 4th section is free. For now, it says pay, and all our payment options are covered up by little workers. And then I get to choose 2 spaces, and each worker on that space will produce something. So if I would have taken this action, I have 2 workers currently, so I would select these 2 areas, meaning I get to place 1 corn thing on here and a wood thing on there. There's no limit how many resources or what kinds of resources can be on a single space. And as long as I said you control that territory, these are your resources that you get to spend on these actions down there. If you upgrade that, you get to choose a 3rd territory. As for territories, they produce whatever resources on here. And if it has a little dude on here, or a little meeple, this is a village, and villages produce, you guessed it, people. So this is where you start taking additional workers here and placing them on that space. And that is all and well, but it turns out the more people you produce, the more expensive they become. So the next time I want to use produce, I have to pay a combat action. And if I create 2 more farmers, now I have to create a combat thing and pay popularity to do that. And last but not least, if all are deployed, I have a lot of doodles here. And by the way, you can never take them back. So this is a cost that keeps on growing. So now every time I want to produce something, it's a combat point and popularity and a coin to do that. And again, you select 2 tiles. Now, the interesting part here is, as I said, you produce 1 resource per worker on this. So if you actually have all 8 workers out this way and produce, you would get 4 core in here and 4 wood there. And that kind of is useful, trust me. If you had built the mill at some space, you could also pretend that this is a free additional area that produces, and even if you have workers on here, so I could select these 2 areas here to produce, and my mill is a free third area here that would also produce with potential workers that are on here. Make it a quite powerful thing. And yes, only you get to use that. The enemy does not benefit from that, even if they removed you from this area and had moved in their own guys over there. Another thing that's cool about that, if you deployed all your workers, here's another chance to get rid of one of the stars, which would go up here for the you created all the workers. Some other things I haven't mentioned yet. If you build all 4 mechs here, you get also an achievement. If you build all 4 buildings, you get an achievement point for that. So that's how you win the game, by kind of focusing, at least you should try to focus on some of these areas and throw out buildings, throw out mechs, or try to increase your workforce in some way for almost like a hostile farming takeover.
Monsanto.
And do that. Now, if you have the resources and want to do it, the action on the below here is to enlist. And if you enlist, that's what these cylinders down here are for. You get to pick one of these cylinders here, revealing another bonus. So let's say I want to have the one for the 3rd action here for building, and place it on one of the round areas up here and immediately gain the bonus. So I want to try to be popular with you guys. It's on YouTube. It's super helpful as well to be popular. So I'll go for popularity and increase my popularity by 2 right away. Now, the cool thing about this here is whenever I take a build action, I gain even more popularity. And not stopping there, if a playing neighbor of me to the left or right also takes this 3rd action space here, the building, I still get one of those popularity things. So it actually makes sense to watch out what players to your left and right haven't used that much, so that you can benefit from this action more often. And if you enlist all 4 guys here, have used up all your little bonus stuff, you get to place another star on this enlist thing. So now we covered the first 5 achievement conditions or ways to win the game. Just one more and you could end the game if you place your 6 star, but there's a little bit more actually available to you. One of them is actually quite easy to explain. So we're done here now with our little what you can do per turn by selecting these actions, and remember to alternate between them. Unless you're Russian, then you can just keep on doing the same thing over and over. Another thing you get at the beginning, saying here, are 2 quest cards, and these 2 quest cards list different conditions. For example, these for me say King of the Hill, control the factory at the end of your turn, which is the center space here, and have the highest power of any player. Ties are okay. So if I want to have high power and on the end of my turn someone in here, then I can just say, hey guys, I finished my quest, and that gets to me to put a star on this little I finished my quest thing. You have 2 quests, so if one doesn't turn out the way you wanted to, try the other one. Maybe it's easier to achieve. Regardless, you can only score 1 quest point here, so that actually counts for all these spaces. As soon as you have a star placed on here, you cannot place any further stars here, so you have to do 6 different things. I'll get to these soon. The last 2 things here are popularity. So when you get a star, if your popularity goes up to 18, turn the dial to 11s or to nuts, or your combat rating goes up to 16 down here, both reminding you with a little star on the space that you'll get one of those. So that's another way to, that's another way to do that. As I said, moving around, you carry your resources, but you actually want to have a mech or your character with you in that regard. Why? Well, if an opponent moves into your space and you don't have... do we have an opponent?
Oh.
We don't have. So
hold it. I'm... mech only, right?
It's mech or character...
Yeah, but I don't need to have the little ziplocs, right? Just the...
Sure. Also,
tiny
also
gift box.
we might want to show off the other things. So let's...
You go with the...
Let's stick with the Russians. So let's say there is a Russian present on this space and now moves into my space with... his Facebook. No, I didn't. That was no intended pun. So he moves into my space here with my workers. Now the thing that happens immediately, since my workers are not trained in the military combat, but this, well, even if it's repurposed for harvesting, this mech is more powerful than my workers. I now have to retreat all my workers to my home base. And well, the Russians now control this area, meaning that they just took all my resources that I bunched up here from me and could technically spend it until I take it back from them. But also, since I moved just 6 workers from that space, the Russian player would have to move his popularity down by 6 spaces. Because, well, as I said, war isn't necessarily making you popular, especially if you're with the people you're warring against. So, but not all is lost, because maybe next turn I could retaliate, and that's what I would do. I then could choose next turn, let's say I'm choosing that move action, and move in my hero and also a mech. Combat will now happen. And combat only happens between, well, plastic figurines. As I said, these workers are not really good at fighting. And actually, it's all right. Once I stop or end my turn with having one of my plastic minis on a space with another plastic mini, we will have combat. Now, if the Russian player here would also have workers on that space, they don't move away just yet. We just check how combat works out. You can think of mechs being like the guardians that you want to have around with your workers to protect them from what just happened, where just a lonely Russian mech came out and just moved all my workers away. So the way combat works is every player has this little dial that goes up to 7, so it's not quite as metal as it would be for certain music videos. This corresponds with your combat value down here. And the reason that this only goes up to 7 is because you can only spend a maximum of 7 combat points into that to determine who's winning. The rules for that are really simple. Both players choose how many of these combat points they want to spend with this wheel in secret. Obviously, you can only spend as many points as you have. So the Russian player in this scenario can only spend 4 points, and I can spend up to 7 points, even though I have 9. 7 is the maximum I can dial in here. But that's not all. There's also these combat cards available to me, and in this case I have a card with a value of 4 and a value of 5 to me, and these are added to that. For each plastic mini involved in combat, I'm allowed to play a card. I don't have to, so you want to do this in secret, so don't look. So I could say, I'm at 9 points, he's at 4 points, has 1 mini here. The card with the highest value available is a 5. So even if he plays a 5 in here, I could easily get there by matching him with turning my dial to 5 and playing a 4. Or actually, let's go with 4 and 5. Why? Because if it's a tie, the attacker wins. So I just have to match him. So even if he has a very high card, he can only match me up to 9. So I'm playing a safe bet here. I want my resources back, so I'm playing a 5 and dialing up to 4 and keep the other card with me. So my opponent does not know if I played 1 card, 2 cards, or no card at all. We reveal our dials at the same time, and well, he spent 4 points, but his card is only a 2, so he has a value of 6, I have a value of 9, I win, which moves his mech back to his base. Since the mech is not kind of a popular worker, you don't lose popularity for that. You only lose popularity if he had farmers with him or workers with him. Now after that, both of these cards are discarded. The board actually reminds you how many cards of each value are available. And now we still have to pay for our combat points. So we both have to adjust our combat value here. Since I won a combat interaction this way, I get to point another star, because that's what these two are here for. So you can achieve 2 stars in a game, or at maximum for winning combats. Naturally, you can combat even more, but you don't get stars for that. So that's what I meant with this game doesn't really enforce as much combat as you want to. You, at most, it makes sense to have 2 combat interactions and winning them, unless you're playing the Saxons, because they have a special ability that allows you to place more stars on there. But let me talk about the special abilities in a bit more detail. If I had built my camaraderie mech, and that's why I said you will see when we talk about combat why this is super useful. So this says, in combat, you do not lose popularity when forcing an opponent's worker to retreat. So you can chase all the enemy workers if you build that mech around and don't have to fear of losing popularity. Thematically, this even makes sense because Anna and Wojciech, with the lore that comes with the game, indicate that both of them travel around the lands helping people out and are really popular and doing that. So kind of you're more the liberator in that context, which is, I think, a nice tie into that with the stone cold mechanic of moving around. And obviously you're not popular with your other players, as you never are when you win combat against them, but at least you don't lose popularity from a game mechanics point of view. If I would have lost the combat interaction, I would have moved my guys back to my home base here, and then the other player would have counted that as a win and placed a star on there and still kept the resources that are on this point. Now we talked about all these victory conditions. As I said, as soon as the 6th Scythe star is placed by any player, this ends the game, and you will then try to figure out who has the most points. In fact, it's quite easy. It's all about the money, and you will count up how much money you have. Before we get to endpoint stuff, I want to talk about 2 further game mechanics that are available here. You'll notice there's these little stars, compass tokens on here. Whenever you move your hero to one of those, you discard this thing. I hope we'll find it again.
You will crawl on the floor. It's already decided. I'm not going to look for it.
And then draw one of these encounter cards, which are usually very beautiful images depicting what you encounter and giving you 3 little thematic choices down here where you get to choose what you want to do. And these are mostly positive, somewhat neutral sometimes. There are special things that will determine from a thematic point of view what you do traveling across these lands. Are you helping people out? Are you kind of taking stuff away from them? So in this case, I see this hulking mech in the foggy background while I think Björn was his name. Björn and Mox? Travel around here. So this says, steer the disoriented mech through the fog with your lantern. You gain 2 oil and 1 popularity. Or pay the stranded man for his mech. Pay 4 coins and deploy 1 mech. Or shout nonsense until the mech comes close enough for you to rob it. Pay 2 popularity to gain 2 coins and any 2 resources. So these are, well, as I said, more thematic ways to interact with the world, and pretty much the central piece of interacting with this world on a thematic thing. Also giving you more illustrations. You may already see that this board is pretty gorgeous to look at, but these images amp it up to, well, 16 in this case, or 18 maybe on the popularity track, because they look really nice. The other special space on the board is the factory in the center. Once you get your major dude here, you get to pick up the factory cards that are set aside here. You have to move your hero there, and then you get to choose one of the cards that are placed. There's always one more card than players play, so in our 2-player game where I talk and she listens, we have 3 cards available here, and let's pretend I'm the first one on the factory space. I get to select a card. And looking at this, I do like this card. The others go sight unseen down there for the other players. So in this case, Sarah, if she gets to the factory, she gets to choose one of those 2 cards. Now, this card gets placed next to my player board and acts as a 5th action space I have now available. And this one says pay 2 coins, and then I can deploy a mech and raise the combat value by 1, which, if you look at this here a mech costs me 4 metal to produce, which is quite undertaking to do that. So paying 2 coins for a mech is pretty good. So these are really powerful, and you kind of want to get to the factory if you can to pick up one of these cards, or you might even want to park your guy there and prevent other players from getting there, or at least making them have a combat interaction with you to see if you can slow them down. As a bottom action, you can just move 1 mini for 2 spaces, which is also nice because you don't have to pay for that, and now you have 2 movement actions on your board, so you can get around way quicker. The factory represents lost technology from the Great War that is still present here, and while the factory is abandoned, you can get there with your main honcho, and then his
name is Wojtek.
Probably something very racist I just said. And get some technology there, and get better at the game. No, not the one with the cards. That is essentially how the entire game works. Each player gets to choose one of these 4, or if you went to the factory, 5 actions, and you start moving around the board, either have combat interactions or not. Essentially, you want to produce more stuff to build this thing down here and try to get your achievement stars out there to finish the game. Once you finish the game, this popularity track will become super important. Depending on where you are on the popularity track, you get different bonuses for different things you have on the board. So, for example, if my popularity is here in this upper space, I get 5 coins for each star. And if I am the one who finished the game, I would have 6 stars there. By 5 coins per star makes 30 coins for me. Then I get coins for each area I control, and as I said, if there's any figure of mine on the space or a building of mine, then I am controlling that. By the way, if there's an enemy figure on that space with my building, they control it. So a building only works as a controlling instance as long as nobody else is there. That center factory space even counts as 3 territories for that purpose, and also boosting up your income quite considerably. Also, hoarding stuff is also useful because for 2 resources you get the amount of coins. In my case, I would get 3 coins per 2 resources I still have here, so that would be a bunch. I don't want to count.
1, 2.
At the beginning of the game, you also select one of these additional bonus tiles at random, which give you a bonus based on where you build your buildings. So this tile, for example, would say if you, for each building on either a farm field here or a tundra oil field there, you get 2 coins for 1 building, 4 coins for 2 buildings, and so on, which kind of is something that forces people or players to rush for the same type of area. And there's stuff for build adjacent to a lake or build on one of these tunnel things. And no, the mine unfortunately does not count as a tunnel space. Build adjacent to a tunnel space. Build adjacent to another building of yours, or I think that's even any building, or to one of these encounter spaces. And since this is random, this switches up the gameplay always a little bit. And that is pretty much it. He or she who has the most coins at the end of the game, and yes, your coins that you still have and haven't thrown to the floor also count. Your combat cards are worthless at the end, and if you did not finish your quest card, that is also worthless at the end. And that's how you determine who won. Combat points are also not really helpful at the end of the game. So they're good if you want to do a lot of combat, or if you want to go up here to have that. To have that star, but they don't give you any bonus at the end of the game. Now, a neat little thing that comes with the game, and we didn't want to fill it out yet because it's kind of precious. I don't want to ruin it for that.
With your bad handwriting?
Yeah.
Well, you got a wife to write.
This comes with an achievement sheet, which has nothing to do with stars specifically, but it says you may write down your name on the achievement sheet up to 2 times per game, and this counts for all the players, saying the first winner for a specific faction or first winner for a specific count. But it's also the first player who places all 6 stars, so it doesn't necessarily mean your name goes on here only if you win a game. No, it's an achievement sheet. You need to achieve something. In this case, it could be that you end the game by placing the 6th
the Scythe star.
But you did not win. Or you could have $100 worth in coins at the end of the game. Or you won the first time for a year. I should place my name in here.
No, we are not going to fill that out with your bad handwriting.
So I actually really like this because no, I won't talk about this.
Thank you. I was just about like, what?
What are you doing? If you are like Sarah and greatly impaired with seeing stuff because
Mom?
Then you can bring out this additional board piece, and now you say, well, this is way too big to map on this thing. You are correct, because on the back side of this is an incomplete board, so to speak, and then you just put it on here and have it even bigger. The problem with that is it fits
on the table.
We have a big table already. And it's kind of, that's it.
I might, depending on tomorrow's gaming plans, we might have to put out the big board tomorrow, and I will set it up.
Then we would have to also put these out, because these additional player boards don't fit on it if we have the big thing.
We'll see. I make it work. I make it work.
Interestingly enough, I can actually, I would see us playing this as a two-player or a single-player game with the big board is way more manageable than with 4 or 5 player, where you would think that that's where you want to bring on the big board. The big board actually is just that. It's just a bigger board.
It's blown
it's
up.
Not more things on there. It's just I think it looks cool, and as I said,
it has more space per hex for more minis.
Since this the artwork is cool, it's nicer to look at and see stuff. Do you think I forgot anything?
No, you covered it.
Scythe
if we want to cover the extra thingies, where do we want to?
A little bit about special abilities. So these modifier boards are just kind of scrambling up where each section or where each action is. The bottom row action is always the same. So if you unlock the enlist point, you just need to listen to someone saying, "I want to build something," and then you check. Oh, first of all, am I his or her neighbor? If yes, do I have that thing uncovered? Then I get the bonus. Other than that, they just modify starting values a slight bit, and also what you might see is that for different boards, the cost or the money you gain for these bottom row actions is also different. As for the factions themselves, we started with Anna and Wojciech, and as I said, they kind of first of all, their special ability allows you to pick 2 options from an encounter card, which is really, really useful. Because since there's no negative encounter cards, like purely negative encounter cards, you don't get to, you get to agonize 1/3 less than you would usually do by trying to figure out what of the 3 options is the best for you.
You talked me that the moment that I was placing the oil barrel, and then you knocked it over.
Also, as for the mech abilities that are on here, I already told you the camaraderie is insanely powerful for you not getting the punishment for losing popularity if you move into a territory with an enemy's or another player's workers, and having this teleport from lake to lake action is also quite useful. They're all like this. They're all really good. So let's talk about Bjorn and Mox. Where's the 5th? Bjorn and Mox from the Northern Kingdoms, and I'll hold these up because it's probably a little bit difficult to see on the other camera. But Bjorn and Mox, your workers may move across rivers. And actually, this only refers to the walker. So at the beginning, you still need to unlock Riverwalk to have your main dude, in this case Björn, to move across them. Same for the mechs. Or another thing is move from lakes and retreat onto adjacent lakes. Meaning that if you have a mech here and get attacked by another mech, you get to, instead of placing him back to the HQ, you can retreat to a lake, which is saving you quite a lot of walking time if you're not that great with combat. Also, artillery. Before combat, if you pay 1 power, opponent loses 2 of his combat value. So, yeah, they all sound pretty cool. Then we have...
you didn't...
Move workers across rivers? I did.
Oh, you did. Okay.
Then we have Gunther, or Günther.
Gunther.
I mean, Gunther is really old school.
There's no umlaut.
With his 2 direwolves, Nacht und Tag, which translates to night and day, which also is it was a popular coffee, but not anymore. But Dr. Brinkman is not doing the coffee spot anymore. But growing up, there was a night and day. a coffee that you can drink anytime because it has neither taste nor caffeine in it. Anyway, back to the man on hand. So Gunther is the Saxony Empire with his Pickelhaube, which is the special, what these helmets are called, at least around here. He's not doing a Stechschritt on this board, but he's looking a little bit intimidating, more militaristic, which isn't, it's intentional because Gunther was sent out from, I think, the Saxon Emperor to check out these lands and try to take them as their own and do a little bit of conquering. That's why he has the special ability Dominate. There's no limit to the number of stars you can place from completing objectives and winning combat. Now, he still starts only with 2 objective cards, but that's one more objective that you can do than other players, and since they're typically not incredibly difficult to achieve, that's an easy star for you to get. Obviously, getting an infinite chance at placing stars on the board for combat is also a nice touch, which would allow you to have more than 2 combats and gain stars for them, which makes you immediately the most annoying person at the table, because everybody else is like, well, leave me alone, I don't want to play this.
I want to farm.
I don't want to play this for combat. You also have Riverwalk as everybody else, but you have Underpass. You can move between a mountain and any tunnel, which is nice, giving you mobility there. Or before combat on a territory with a tunnel, the opponent loses 2 combat points, which is also pretty annoying, especially if you are as aggressive with him as his special ability implies. If you notice by now, the 4th is always speed and is always the same bonus for everyone. You just get to move faster. Then we have Zara and Kar from the Crimean Khaganate. She has Coercion. Once per turn, you may spend 1 combat card as if it were 1 resource token. Unfortunately, she does not start with combat cards, so you still have to get them. But that's clearly more a faction that is centered around trading, getting more resources to build stuff, because with this you now have 3 different ways to get resources. You can use the produce action, you can use the trade action, and you can technically build your combat cards and spend them for resources to edge out that one odd resource that you might be missing each turn. You also have Wayfare, move from a territory or home base to any inactive faction's home base or your own, which is incredibly powerful in a 2-player game. It's still useful even in a 5-player game, but if you check this out, there's more home bases than there are factions in here, because the expansion is already announced, but these areas here, the little pig, the hog, and the fish are not used yet. So you could just immediately teleport to those and get to those areas here, which have 2 advantages to go for. First of all, they have a land connection to the factory, meaning you don't have to cross a river or a lake to get there. Also, it's a way for you to maybe run around and pick up these encounter tokens that might still rest here, depending on how fast other players are there. Also interesting to consider, just yes, building stuff is good, but specifically if you are playing the Polanian faction, moving around, getting those 2 bonuses from each of these encounters, and just zipping around the board and having encounters and getting a ton of popularity and or resources is a quite viable way to amp up your influence and power on this. Other things you can do, you have Scout, meaning you get to steal an opponent card, and you don't have to spend that card. So if you don't want to use the bolster action to get cards, just steal them from an enemy. That might be a thing by, first of all, they have 1 less card, and if you're lucky, you take away their high power card, and you don't have to spend them. You can convert it later on for a resource, because the Scythe in this case is literally stronger than the sword. Certainly in this game long term. And for the Rosviet, Olga and Changa. Again, a river walk ability. Here you have township. You can move between any village you control and the factory. That's insane. It's like immediately you get access to those cards here, since all areas have a little town on here, which kind of like that is useful. Or People's Army. In combat, where you have at least one worker, you may play an additional combat card. So the same effect you would gain for per one of your plastic figurines, you get to play a card in here. For the Russians, you can just place your workers in here because it's communism time, socialism time. Everybody's a soldier as well as a farmer. So you can throw little guys at mechs and kind of make that more powerful, I guess. And they have the Relentless special ability, making now more sense. You can just keep on selecting the same action on the board.
Oh, you didn't say that in the beginning, did you? That you have to switch up your
I said it 2 or 3 times.
Okay.
But,
Okay. I didn't catch that.
So for them, this doesn't count, which is powerful in its regard with these boards here. But now imagine how powerful that is, because that also counts for the factory card. So someone can really, the Russians could punch out mechs in their 4 mechs in 4 turns, as long as they have enough money to pay for that, which is okay. Now, does that sound like any faction is overpowered? Yes, they're kind of all overpowered, which then again makes the game interesting, because depending on what you play, and I think it's recommended to randomly hand out the factions so everybody gets to play that, although you could just select what faction you want to play and then hand out that technology sub-board, because I don't think it makes sense to choose these. It's more viable to just
randomize,
shuffle them up and then throw them at other players, hoping that they don't punch you back for throwing too hard.
Throwing in the teeth.
That was the quickest explanation that you probably skipped. So let's talk about what we liked and disliked about this game.
So now it's my time to talk. Likes and dislikes. For one, I need the reference cards, and second, I need a glance at the box. For a second, please give me that box. So I got a task that was told to me when I said, well, we're gonna have Scythe on the Gamers Couch. Okay. Wow! Jakub Rożalski, who's the artist that made this beautiful game look stunning. So Tina, who's painting the Draw for Initiative board game art series with me, said the same thing that I said. Wow, this is frickin' gorgeous. This is awesomely executed artwork. So for one, I have to praise you, Jakub, because you did a wonderful job here to, well, just looking at the board and specifically
you keep on talking.
Those cards.
I'll just.
It's like, it's really eye candy, and I do expect that from very many games, but usually it's not the heavy Euro games that would maybe you cover me up. Can you? Thank you. That's so. Now I look beautiful because I have a card in my face.
The artwork is more important than you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So anyway, I don't expect this level of gorgeous artwork with very many Euro games. Very often the artwork is executed super well. So the line work, the shading stuff is done very, very well, but maybe the motifs are not to the point where I say, wow. In this case, it's both execution and also the choice of motif that is extraordinarily well done. So Tina and I, we thank you very much for this eye candy here. And it just goes throughout the game. It's like everywhere, on the board, on the cards, on the player mats. It's just It's stunning. So next up, another thing that I always am very happy with is when the components are well produced, and in this case, especially with the collector's edition, they're stunning as well. The minis are, well, they're cutesy. They don't bend too much like you sometimes have when you have, I think it's resin that they use when there's kind of like the bendy.
No,
what's it called?
It's all plastic, but
It's a different mixture. This is more sturdy.
Hard plastic, although I don't think it's ABS. It could be ABS. It's certainly a hard plastic. It's not the one that bends easily. You may see that it's moving a little bit, but this is probably not that stuff that you have to put into hot water and bend.
Yeah, right. So I really like that. I mean, I'm always a lover of wooden pieces when it comes to player components, and I really like those. They're simple. They remind me a lot of the viticulture minis, so they're not too fancy in their shapes, but they're very cute. They're sturdy, they're lovely, and you can recognize them when you have a shit ton of components on your player mats. You can recognize them easily, and you're not searching. You're never searching for something. In the collector's edition, there's the little mini thingies here for the resources as well, and they're so sweet and lovely and stunning, and I really like those. But even if we wouldn't have had the collector's edition and had just the cardboard chits, it would have been fine as well. But this is just a bonus on top, as well as the coins, the clinky metal coins, and they are embossed. Is it embossed? When it's raised, it's the right word. Yeah, they're embossed, and you can read different languages on there. And now here comes the nerding out before even starting to play. We opened the box the first time, set it up for the two of us to test play, and I was like, goddamn, I don't know what faction to play, because for one, I was looking at the coins and it's the real language. It's like, yeah, okay, I recognize things from like the real world, which is totally awesome. And the factions, you play in the area that we live in. So every faction that is on the board.
What's called Europa.
Yeah, but there's like Spain, Italy, Greece. We don't live in that part of Europe. It's the part of Europe we live in, or that are direct neighbors to us.
Yeah, the important parts of Europa.
Thank you for interrupting me again. So I was like, oh, whom am I gonna play? Because I like to bring something personal to the way I play games. So I'm born in Saxony, hence I could play Gunther. But my families, my grandparents, great-grandparents, they do come from Polania or Crimea or Russia, and it's like, now who am I gonna play? It's like, who am I gonna take? So that was one thing that was really difficult to play, to choose, but that was funny for me in the beginning. I was really nerding out, like, which generation of my ancestors am I gonna play? But I decided on Polania, and we'll talk about in the experiences how that went. But one thing I wanted to mention that was over the top cool is that you get the two reference cards. So for one, please lower the minis. I have to hold the cards.
Let me finish. There's only one left, and then keep on talking.
Okay, so I go to the board first. Before no, I have to show that as well. Now I can. Rambling.
Falling off.
Okay, so
I still have to show these. No.
I did. Stop it. So one thing looking at the board and coming back to the artwork before I go into the most awesome thing about this game before you even start playing, is that there are hidden gimmicks on the board that you might recognize, especially if you live in Europe. So with the northerns up here, for example, there is a church that little icon drawing there is made from the real church that is in Norway, where I forgot the name. I think it's around Bergen, like the Hardanger region, like midsection of Norway to the west. I visited that church, and it's like, whoa, I found something on the board. And then there's like, I don't know, a Yeti or something. He's just very cute and funny looking there. The churches in in the Rusvik faction here, they look like the Orthodox churches in real life. So they're more to there. This one reminds me of the Chocolate Factory from the movies. It's just very many gimmicks in here.
Oriental influences.
What was she called?
Hagia Sophia.
Yeah, thank you, Hagia Sophia. This one looks like North Italy, southern
Bavaria would also.
Tyrol, like that area in like real life. So there's just very many things that you recognize if you happen to live in Europe, but it's not real enough to, or it's not painted or drawn in a way that you say, oh, this is like on I don't know, A45 third exit from my house or something. But it's definitely recognizable. But coming back to the reference cards, these are what I love the most about this game when it comes to setup and getting you ready to play and not the gameplay itself. So you get 2 reference cards, every player. On one side there's just an image of the tiny board with all the different kinds of hex that show what the other factions could do, just as a reminder. And on the back side there's a combat, just a reference sheet, like telling you a quick guide, so to say. And Daniel was already telling you that all the different minis and workers, what they could do, is also on one of these reference cards. But the coolest one is actually this guide. So when you explain the game to somebody, it could be quite overwhelming because it's one of those Euro games again where you have a ton of choices. But in the end, it plays super simple because there's only so much you can do. And to get you started, they do have a quick guide here, what you should maybe do if you're unsure what to do in your first turn, second, third, fourth, fifth. This is freaking awesome, and I wish that very many more games would have something like quick start suggestion kind of a thing going on. I really love that because it made sense.
I have to say I very much like the wording on that as well, because it doesn't tell you want to do this or that, but it says do something someone else hasn't done yet.
Yeah. It's like, for example, first turn, take one of the top row actions that no one else has tried. Or a second turn, work towards taking both a top and a bottom row action in the same turn. Third turn, use a faction ability if possible. Fourth turn, look at your objective cards and pick one to pursue. And fifth turn, pick one of the 10 different ways to place a star and try to accomplish it. It's like really it's very generic, so you can use this guide no matter what faction you play, but it gets you into the game. It doesn't make you feel lost like you sometimes, or overwhelmed like you sometimes are with big Euros, especially when you get explained the game for like 20 minutes, like, oh, okay, I hope I'm not forgetting anything, you know?
Yeah, this game has I don't think it's more complex or complicated than viticulture, but they're more the amount of wheels turning. Since you have here you have more different resource types that you're working with. It is sometimes with these games the feeling of, I roughly know where I want to go, but there's like instead of 2 or 3 different ways to get there, now you have 4 or 5 different ways to get there. So this is really helpful.
Exactly.
It's I think I saw Jamie Stegmaier talk about how he liked the trick books from Trickerion. Having this little guide in front of you, although those are, yes, they also have these hints in there that try to assist you, but they're also a reference card. So this reminds me from that, and I think he took inspiration from that. I don't know if that inspiration actually came from that and moved into Scythe, but in both games it is something I very much like, because it's also lets people get into the game quicker. Yes, you have some downtime in this game because, well, everybody has their turn, so you have to wait until it's your turn again. But while that is happening, not only studying the board, but you can also take a look at your reference card that might give you a hint or an idea specifically for the first couple of games, and then
I didn't find. Coming to the downtime that you just mentioned with the 2-player game, I didn't find that we had any downtime because, for one, we played like it was suggested in the manual, that if somebody took the B action, which is the bottom row action, the other one could already play the upper row action. And you, at least, well, it was both of us pretty much. While the other one was playing the A and maybe even the B action, I was thinking about, okay, what am I going to do next? Where do I want to go? So I needed time to think about what I wanted to do next. I knew the long-term goal, but I had to decide what specific action am I gonna take next? Is it A or B? And trying to figure that out took me like a minute or something. And in that time, he was playing his A action and sometimes even B action. So I didn't feel we had any downtime. With a 3-player game, yes, I had a tiny bit of a downtime, but not to the point that I said, oh, what am I gonna do here? So it never felt boring because you were occupied with what you would do the next turn.
A thing I very much like about the nature of this game is when we were playing this, I was kind of joking, like Jamie found a way to make you agonize twice about a single thing instead of once, which kind of is illustrated the best with the upgrade action, where you upgrade a top row thing by making a thing better, and then but you also upgrade a bottom row thing and make it less expensive. And say, I want to upgrade the top row thing, the thing I use the most, and same for the bottom row thing. But at some point you get to the I'm using this. On a broader spectrum. What I thought was interesting with this is I think this game actively tries to train you for focusing your attention on 2 to 3 things at the same time. And I know this can get to lead to frustration with some people, but I think if you take your time and be understanding with other players, that kind of works out. Reason for me saying this is you have, for once, and this moving only or taking only one or moving between actions each turn also ties into that. You have this probably grand goal in mind, what you want to do, which relates to these. How do you want to get to placing 6 stars? Do you want to have a more combat focus? Do you want to expand more and bring workers out? So a decision like that, and funneling all your actions towards that goal. But the next thing is, okay, I wanna produce, or let's say I want to build mechs. Then my question is, okay, how do I get the resources for the mech? So I have a midterm long goal where I want to accumulate as many of these metal bars as possible, but I can do that in one turn. So my short-term goal would then be, okay, I can produce here if I have those, or I want to trade, but typically I cannot repeat the same action all the time. So you have to keep these 3 things in mind. It sounds, just saying that, it sounds easy that you have this long-term goal, mid-term goal, and short-term goal, and just alternating between short-term goals to get there. But you'd be surprised how often it happens that you're sitting there and
What did I want to do
what did I
again?
want to do? And then you figure, oh, I took the wrong resources. I wanted to
Yeah, we
to
had
do
that
something,
quite a bit. We're going to talk about
something
that.
different. And I think that is something that you can practice, and it's a nice thing to have with that. But this is also certainly a game that exhausts you because you have to be paying attention constantly, and since you're doing these three goal tracks or trackings in your mind, you also have to look at what other players are doing. You specifically have to pay attention: is someone really rushing to end the game because they might consider themselves ahead in terms of money value,
Or they just want to be on the list for the first one to end
Or-
the
or
game,
they-
no matter if they win or not.
and then you have these goals, and then you get to deploy a mech, and then again you get to agonize because you now want to have to decide which mech you bring out. Do you need speed? Do you have to get around there? Do you want to pick up the last 2 or 3 encounter tokens that are there? Maybe not. Maybe you want to upgrade your combat thing because you still want to have those 2 combat stars. Maybe you have not had any combat interaction at all. But then again, you could be someone saying, I really don't like combat, I want to go for the resource expansion. All is viable in this game, which makes it really a huge box of opportunities, an even bigger box of agonizing over them. But I think from a game design perspective, it's really impressive how it still ends up working in the end. There's probably choices that you can make that are not optimal, but for those, it's typically I want to start hoarding on a specific resource. That would be a non-optimal choice. But anything else, anything that brings you forward in 1 or 2 aspects, is something that will benefit you in the game. And if you can manage to juggle all those thoughts together with what are the other players doing, that's quite a really enjoyable thing to do.
Yeah.
The on the other hand, as I said, surprisingly, the player interaction is quite thin. Yes, there's combat, but
But only if you play with my husband.
in general, even that, it's very light. There's no real big
don't have
incentive
to,
to do a lot of combat. Yes,
If you're not Gunther, you don't have to.
you can gain these resources,
Yeah.
and if you don't playing with 5, you don't have to play
And
with
that's actually one thing that really surprised me. So this game was in quite a while a game that surprised me on many levels. I have a lot of games that you just buy for us, so I don't look up too many games in advance.
So Sarah tries to tell you she was not part of the hype on the internet.
No, I
leading
was
up to
not,
this game.
because for one, I'm not really a lover of hyping anything. I'm just not made for that. I like to play games or do things that I like, and not just because they're popular or the internet likes them so much that you have to play them. So I give them a try if I can, yes, but that doesn't mean that I'm on the hype train, and I wasn't with this one. So his job in our board game marriage is he looks around and sees, what games are out there, because he also has the Kickstarter page, so he kickstarts. I don't have to take care of this. I have to take care of having the filming and the setting up date night and playing and losing more often than not. That's my job, and painting the games and stuff like that. But the box just came, and I had no clue on what to expect about this game. I didn't know what the mechanics were.
Well, you knew it was from Jamie, and you liked viticulture.
Oh, not liked, I loved viticulture. So, but that doesn't mean he does the same type of a game. Coming to my favorite designer, Antoine, he has very different kinds of mechanics in his game. So I assumed that maybe Jamie would do a totally different kind of a game that is not recognizable to the mechanics of viticulture. So, but I looked at the box and I said, "Ooh, okay, this looks like maybe." I was reminded of Blood Rage, like fighting. You have to fight, and sometimes have to
the combat max.
Yeah, so I was thinking way more combat heavy than it actually is. I didn't expect that you could cop out of the combat that much, and that it is, well, maybe kind of suggested. So maybe you don't want to wage war, so maybe be the nice person, love each other, just like all the Twitter feeds that you get. You have to love each other because then humanity gets better, and it's packed in a board game pretty much. So I was surprised.
I think a good
by
way.
That.
I think a good way to put that in words is this game is less about combat, but more about protecting your assets.
Right. Yes. Very
And that's
much so.
why you want to bring out the mechs. It's not to kind of conquer.
They are what we all should expect from armies in real life: protecting, not being aggressive and waging wars as humanity does. So I was surprised by that. But what I did like about it, to the point that I said it surprised me that much that I said I love this game. It's not like, I mean, I'm pretty much taking away the rating here. Is it? I think it could be used as one of the first Euro games to ever play if you get to that point as a gamer that you want to play Euros.
Really?
Because it kind of teaches you the aspects of Euros, meaning short-term, mid-term, long-term, and it does that kind of obviously, that you want to have those goals in mind, and then you can go on to the civilization and agricola and what they are all called, whereas not sure about that.
And kind of taking a future video away, I think this is more involved and more complicated than something like Agricola or Caverna. In fact, I would argue that something like viticulture is a good intro to Euro stuff, and this is what you can bring out after.
Like I said, one of the first games, but it teaches you
one of the later games.
No, it's like if you say you play viticulture first and then you play this one, and only then you play other Euro games, I think you might have less of a problem with the overwhelming thing and losing your train of thought during a play with the later games, with the other games, because you very obviously are taught here, keep in mind short-term, mid-term, long-term. It's with these actions and the upgrades and stuff like that, it very obviously teaches you the mechanic of you get better in a Euro game. You have to collect certain resources.
I agree.
Don't go down one path, go down two paths. I agree that it's the
same skill, but for me this is on the same level of attention that is required and strategic thinking as is, for example, Tricarion.
I find that a bit easier because it so obviously tells you what to do. It suggests a lot of things for you that you might not think of when you just open a box with a new game. Like I said, we opened the box and I was like, after you explained, it's like, oh fuck, I hope I remember all of that. And then you said, oh, here are your reference cards. I forgot to give them. It's like, thank you.
The rules and explanation stuff is great, and I have to admit I think the first thing I saw that was still during the Kickstarter there, I think it was a video,
right?
That Jamie put out talking about what how this game is played, what he tried to achieve with these things, and then even before looking at the manual, I saw the Watch It Played with Rodney Smith, which was incredibly helpful, and kind of me talking through the game is redundant, but that's how we do that, to tell you what we mean once we get to the gameplay experience and stuff thing. But even with that you don't get super overwhelmed with the manual. Something I very, very much like with the manual is there's at least that is something that I find incredibly helpful. There's little green boxes saying designer's note that explain again what Jamie Stegmaier was thinking about when adding a certain rule or adding a certain situation that he wanted to emphasize, or sometimes just a little bit kind of here's the look behind the scenes production note saying, well, we chose, for example, these cards, and in fact, that goes for all the cards. The artwork is most prominent, and he didn't opt in for flavor text because he thought that it would be more interesting to just set a scene and then have choices associated with that scene, but not give you this whole story. It's for you to see that.
And you can share the drawing, like looking every player. So if you draw one of those, you're supposed to, everybody is supposed to look at the artwork and find themselves in the scene. And then you, as the person who has the encounter, is supposed to read aloud the 3 texts that are in bold. And then you only make your choice with what is actually happening. And I like that because it has it increases kind of the interaction with the other players, where other interaction would only be combat, and otherwise you can play kind of around each other. You can play kind of passive, non-aggressive.
Well, usually I think for Euros or Euro games in general, theme is, yes, something that is, if present, only visually present. In terms of, in Caverna, you don't have flavor text explaining to you why your dwarf did now this and went onto the journey. It's kind of you telling that story, or just through gameplay mechanics.
Yeah.
But that is also the reason why it feels quite thin if it comes to that.
And you concentrate on the mechanics and not on the story that comes with the game.
In this, with the level of artwork involved and how prominently that is focused, it's not just this is a sheep somewhere and somehow this sheep is a resource in my thing. No, this is you get to understand that is a scene, that an encounter is actually an encounter, and that enhances for me the feeling of theme without kind of forcing it down your throat with a reference text card and making it more interesting. I do like that. It's a different approach, I think, to what some other games are doing, and it worked out well for us.
It feels kind of fresh to not have the same thing over and over again. If you just play 1 or 2 Euro games, you might not be as sick of it as you are if you play 50 or 80 different kinds of Euro games. So I just like that there was a fresh approach. But for whatever reason, the way this game was set up, it managed for me to grasp this game quicker than other Euros and feel less overwhelmed. And I think it's because of the top row, bottom row choice, because then you just get taken away part of the choice in the beginning, like right away, because you cannot afford them, so you don't necessarily think about them. I think
the guidance, so
it's like gradually
the guidance you're
guiding you into the game,
getting from the game, specifically with that thing, top row, bottom row action, where you want to get somewhere, so you have to choose an action that brings you closer to that goal. Then while you're doing that, the second question is, do I have the resources, or do I want to spend the resources for the bottom row thing? If yes, that brings me forward too. And if that is somehow tied to a choice, let's say upgrade, how can I let that work back positively into my other things? So it funnels you, or at least it gives you the suggestion of how could you streamline your process. Yeah. And in that regard, I think it is simpler than, let's say, Trickerion. Trickerion also would limit you to 5 to 6 different actions that you can take, and then you have to figure out the order how you want to do. These double board action are the thing that simplifies that and streamlines that, making this more maybe looking easier. Although I think
it's more approachable.
The overall thing going on is more involved and more demanding, at least.
Yes, I cannot play 2 rounds of that in a night.
I mean, same would go for Tricarian for me.
Yeah, but maybe I could manage there easier than here, because this is so involved. But it doesn't feel like you're learning a new language like from scratch. It's more like, I just gotta refresh my knowledge here. It really eases you into the game, the way it's set up, the way things are explained, the icons reminding you constantly of things. We hardly looked anything up while playing. It's just one thing that we had to look up and had kind of like did not play it right in the first time, and that was the river walk.
Yeah, that's reading comprehension error on our part. Yeah.
And that was the only thing that we did not grasp like right away. It's like we kind of stupid with it.
Yeah, we misunderstood that. So, for example, here it says move across rivers to villages and mountains. So what we understood was that allows you to move between villages and mountains, but
only
between
that spot.
Yeah. But in fact, what it says is you can move from any field as long as your target field is either a village or a mountain, giving you more opportunities to move. But as I said.
That was on our part, but there's I feel with other Euro games we look up more stuff, we check more things, and with this one, maybe that is why I find this could be like a training Euro game. If you want to train somebody to enjoy Euro games, you put this one on the table, because there's not a lot of questions that you have, because it's explained so well, and it is sectioned very well, that you don't have the overwhelm, you don't have a lot of questions, and therefore have to look things up and have gameplay interruptions and stuff like that. And I think also the time, it says 115 minutes per round. It was spot on with us.
Exactly 109.
No, it's like 110, 115. It's like
even for
new players,
even for a first game.
Yeah, first game, and even 2 or 3 players. It was very spot on. So I think they just managed to streamline and ease all the things that get you into the game, so that you can then enjoy the gameplay way more than you sometimes do with other Euros. And also it's called Europa. I mean, thank you.
Another sign that this is quite well done in terms of streamlining. Playing this reminded me quite a bit of strategy games on the PC. That typically you want to play those because they take care of all the busy work behind the scenes for you, and moving units and all those resources and keeping track of that and all those different options. And this Scythe does it in a way that is very easily manageable without overwhelming you with keeping track of everything and having to do a lot of resource tracking, value tracking, stats tracking in the background.
Moving bits and bobs from left to right.
Comes down to your 2 boards that are in front of you with these little wooden cubes, and that's pretty much it. But it still feels like one of those more involved strategy games there.
Yeah. I really, I was surprised by this one. Shall we rate and then go to the last section? Because when I look at the clock, this is going to be a long video.
Unfortunately. But, well, if you're still here...
Yeah, you have the Sunday where you have the 5th coffee on Sunday morning.
I mean, there's probably no reason to keep this super.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah,
that's Tina's thumb and that's my thumb.
Yeah, I mean, we gushed over this already. It's really nice.
Wow.
I almost didn't pick up this game because we did do a test play at Essen last year,
and that's part of the funny stories and experiences.
And I wasn't really convinced, and it turns out that the rules explanation wasn't really stellar. We got playing there, and also we played in a group with other people, and no one was really native speaker neither in English nor other, well, except for one. But for some reason,
it's always very stressful.
In that rules explanation, it went under that you get to choose both things that you select on your little tile, which kind of we were playing, and then it's like, yeah, this feels off and long and boring, and watching later that explanation going with the Kickstarter, because kind of the hype kept going. So in this case, for us, it was not bad that there was some hype going on, and reevaluating or checking in back with the game, where it was like, yeah, actually, that makes way more sense now, the way that was explained. So that led to me picking up. And also, we picked up Viticulture at last Essen and then played that, and it's like, I really like the way this guy makes his games, and the components were nice in Viticulture. So
it's the same windmill that I recognize this one from Viticulture. It's like hee hee.
It was apparent that the components would be pretty good with this one as well.
Yeah,
so
I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, still talking about things I like. I really, really like also the way that there's different achievement goals you want to go for, and that gives you guidance. It's like this is a complex game that still manages to reach out and hold your hand, guiding you through it until the end. And even then, yes, you might feel frustrated from time to time because you're overwhelmed or not quite sure what you want to do next. But in the end, it's like, yeah, it somehow worked out. I mean, Civilization is also a difficult thing to do, and this. Not the game necessarily, but this exploring, expanding, exploiting, and exterminating is more involved.
Yeah, well. Talking a bit about the experiences, we played it twice now, just the two of us, then 3 times.
We played it 2 times and together, and once with Tina, I think.
Did we play twice?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, okay. Good. No, I just remember I played Polania and Rosviet.
Really?
And you played Crimea and Saxon. So twice. Anyway, first game, just him and I, date night on Wednesdays trying this game. And it was a lovely test game. Aside from the us being stupid, not comprehending what it does here, that I can go from any tile to any village or to any tunnel as a river walker. I just progressed way more slowly to here. So him, I'm taking you as red and I am white because I'm Polania. He was like, with his army, there was 2 mechs and his creature on the factory spot.
Hero, yeah.
The Gunther with the day and night, and you were there, and I was just like, the farthest I got was here, so I was on those 5 fields, and I thought, oh, I'm gonna lose horribly. No, we were pretty close together, but I couldn't go to the factory because he was sitting there with his goddamn wolves and makes us like, that is my factory. And only him using one of those factory cards is like, whoa. And I couldn't get there because there's also these kinds of choices, and I decided not to fight with you. Is if I go against the faction that is most heavy for combat, I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm the popular kind of a faction. I'm so not with the combat. I'm collecting mushrooms and berries in the forests, and I'm helping out farmers, and I'm not fighting. And then I'm going against, I'm the Saxon, I'm Gunther, I have day and night and
I have to say, I didn't actually. That first game we played,
you were scary there, just sitting there.
Both of us were quite non-combat focused.
Yeah,
because
but
I was interested in seeing if this game, how much combat is actually required.
Yeah. But you just sitting there with 2 mechs and your mini, it's just like intimidating. So it's like, no, I'm just I'm just. So we didn't have any combat in the first game. The second game, and we were pretty close together with the victory points, and had a lovely experience again. Like I said, it was very, very lovely test play. So then Sunday comes around and we play with 3 people. I play the Rosvet faction, Tina plays Polania, and you played Crimea. Mm-hmm. And it was her first game, so what I found was she was way more overwhelmed by all the choices than we were. She said, oh, brain fart. Well, can I redo that? It's like, so she was really scatterbrained and had a bit more of a hard time deciding where she wanted to go down, or just remembering to the next one, this is the path I want to go down. Because so many things happen, it's like, you're distracted by the lovely artwork, So, there it was. I could pretty much jump to the factory, so this is what I did like in turn 2, and I could do the same action over and over again, and I find that so powerful. And I did. It's like, I'm taking the first factory card. It's like, brrr. So then he came in with his Crimean mechs and stuff, and was like, honey, we're gonna have a combat here. It's like him again. Crimean faction is very combat heavy, so he was having.
Not really, but I get to steal a card.
Thank you, and I had like 2, and he stole 1, and had more strength than I had. So it's like, go home, Russia. Go home to your Siberian tundra and never come back. So that's what happened. I wasn't
forcing combat, but
you wanted to go to my factory.
That second game. For one, I had a quest card that required me to go there, and I also made the choice. I don't want to hunt everybody down for combat, because losing their popularity with if you hurt farm workers is
but really, that wasn't your reasoning. At least that's not what you said. It's like,
I wanted to get in there to get the factory card.
Yeah, you did. You retrieved. We both did our thing again, and then at one point it's like, okay, the smart thing to do now would actually be attacking my wife again, but then I guess I have to move out. And he looked at me like, do I have to move out if I do that? It's like, you better never attack me again. It's like 2 rounds later. He's like, I should actually, but if I do that, there's gonna be poison in my food. And he didn't attack.
I didn't attack.
You didn't attack. Good for you. You still won by so many points.
I didn't attack you, but other players at the table, Gina. So we were playing with...
battery.
So my second combat encounter was more about, we had this special thing here that gave endgame bonuses for building buildings on the mining on tunnels. And playing with 3... a quick count of tunnels available means that on average everybody would get 2, but Tina decided to, get her 3rd, and denying me the possibility of building 2 buildings on there. So as retaliation, since she had a couple of resources there, tons, I decided to go there. I won the fight, lost popularity, and then immediately spend a couple of her resources in that regard for one of my actions. But that is also a good showcase for why that isn't super... It's like, yes, you can move in here, then you remove the workers and have the the common stuff. I think she even had a mech in here that gets moved back. But she got back fairly quickly, and you don't
Next turn, yeah.
you don't get to spend those resources unless you get to have another move. But unless you have a special factory card that allows you to move, it's usually you only have one move action, then something else, and then another move action. So the chances are that that the other player might reclaim their stuff unless you rated them at a position that was fairly difficult to get to. Yeah. And considering that these resources are also worth points at the end, if you control them, that was a worthwhile go. But yeah, that's what I meant with your mechs are more about protecting your resources than invading other areas.
Yeah. But it was a lot of fun playing. Again, you're exhausted afterwards. Your brain is just a melty, blobby jello kind of a thing in your head. You're like, what's my name?
Same as right now after this very long video.
Yeah, which we are going to wrap up now with a tiny teaser for next Wednesday's Draw for Initiative. Tina and I, we paint kind of fan art for the board games that we play, depicting, for example, scenes that we had at the table while playing a certain game. So check that out. That kind of a video on Wednesday, 9 a.m. CET. And the new game that we are going to paint is
Has it mechs?
No.
Then it's not Scythe.
No, it's not. It's a game that we mentioned today on this video. And it being ugly artwork is kind of an illusion. I have to laugh already. Illusion, that's the word I was going for. So yeah, there's your hint. What are we gonna paint? Did you guess it? Did you guess it? Did you guess it? Did you make a better job than the last 2 weeks?
Is it about magic?
Yes.
Is it about books?
No.
No books?
There are some books in there in the game, but it's not centered around books.
Is it just one book?
No.
A big book?
No. We had that game already. You're not up to speed with your guesswork.
So is it just magic, or are there also clerics and warriors and hunters?
Just magic.
Just magic, okay. Is it more performing magic?
Yes.
I think I know what it is. Do you also know what it is? If not, find out on Wednesday.
9 a.m. CET on this channel. Come back and look.
And if you want to stay up to date, either subscribe to this channel, or you can find us also on the geek list for Gamers Couch, which is these videos, or you can find the geek list for the Draw for Initiative, which are the what she said.
Painting.
Board games.
Board games are to paint and to
on
play.
Board Game Geek.
Yeah. And if you want to do us a favor and thumbs up this video or share it with a friend, we would very much appreciate that because it helps us out. So yeah, time to say goodbye and do the editing work, and you now finally having somewhat of a weekend. Ow! You have to lose popularity.
There's only 2 combat actions.
Lose popularity. You're...
Goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody. Happy Sunday.